Welcome everybody to the City Center Committee. Happy New Year. This is our first meeting for 2026. So welcome everybody. With me here today is Councillor Olako, Councillor Rowlands, and we also have members of the public service that will be joining us here in today's meeting. First, I would like to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota people, and the national homeland of the Red River Nation. We get our drinking water from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. And does somebody want to move the minutes?
So moved.
Okay.
And Happy New Year. Thank you for chairing, starting us off.
Thank you.
Also, Hillary, thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Okay.
Don't have any delegations?
No delegations. Okay, first up for reports is an extension of time subdivision and rezoning.
moved.
Okay.
I had requested administration to be here for this. You're there. Can you give us an overview? I think for the public record, it's important to have an overview of why the delay. I see that the applicant themselves this time requested the delay. Is there some reasons, or you can give me an explanation why the conversations are taking this long?
Sure. It's a complicated file. This, as far as I'm aware, the city had completed our tasks last year, 2024. And they had the agreements in their possession in January 2025. We've received all the agreements executed and signed as of December, as of Christmas. They came in the week before. It's just the engineering, they started to rework them in the fall. So Water and Waste received an updated engineering report early December. It looks good. It's just cleaned up a couple outstanding issues. They're looking at also whether or not they can do additional density here and there. And they're just fine tuning their own plan. So the delays have really been just fine tuning the developer's plan on his side.
Okay. Okay. So it's not the city, it's the developer who is requesting the extension of time. Okay. So moved.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Next is item 2, requested amendment for development of the Sugar Beets redevelopment site. Any
So moved.
questions?
No.
Right. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion is carried. And now we're moving on to plan approval for 499 Burbank Street.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. All right, now we'll adjourn till 10:30 for a public hearing. Good morning, welcome back to the meeting. Now we're on to the public hearing portion of our meeting. And first up is a rezoning at 916 Warsaw Avenue. Clerk.
In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is that the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the applicant may return in rebuttal to comments made, however, no new information is permitted. Please note that when your name is called, it is your opportunity to speak, however, you are not obligated to do so. For a more in-depth overview of the public hearing process and other information pertaining to what happens before, during, and after a public hearing, please consult the City Clerk's Department website. Please note that all public hearings are recorded and will be part of the public record. Should you have any questions after the hearings have concluded, please contact the City Clerk's Department. Item 1 is a subdivision rezoning at 916 Warsaw Avenue under file DASZ 38/2025. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing and the following item will also be heard at the same time. Namely, item 2 is a variance at 916 Warsaw Avenue under file DAV 206-277/2025D. Please note communications were received in support of the matter, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. The process the committee will follow is that the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application, those registered in opposition, and those registered for information. The applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made, however, no new information is permitted. Speakers will be permitted 5 minutes for their presentations. All participants in the Zoom meeting have been muted and will only be permitted to speak when called upon. So I'll turn it over to the planner for an overview.
Right, so this is a subdivision and rezoning application that involves rezoning the property to the C1 Commercial Neighborhood District. The property is located at the southwest corner of Stafford Street at Warsaw Avenue in the Rockwood neighborhood of the River Heights Fort Garry ward. It is in an established neighborhood, mature community policy area of Complete Communities 2.0. It is currently zoned R1M, residential single-family medium district, and is approximately 5,764 square feet in assessed area. The applicant is intending to establish a retail art boutique on the property in 2 phases. The first phase involves demolishing the existing garage, adding 2 parking stalls, including 1 accessible stall, removing the Stafford Street fence and a tree in the backyard, installing a new door and accessible ramp on the north facade to connect the public sidewalk on Stafford Street and Warsaw Avenue, and then undertaking interior modifications. And the second phase involves constructing a 900 square foot addition to the rear of the existing dwelling. As part of the application, several variances are required. So the first is a use variance, which would enable the applicant to establish the retail art boutique before the rezoning has concluded. The second variance is for the construction, or is for a west side yard of 4 feet instead of 10 feet. Which is supported by the administration because the building is 1 story in height, and there is a required 7-foot setback to Stafford, which is a public works requirement, and so the public service is not able to support bringing the building closer to Stafford. There's also a variance for parking directly off a lane instead of an aisle or driveway, which the public service is also supportive of because there's no space for a parking aisle or drive aisle. There is a variance for insufficient buffering of a parking or loading area located within 20 feet of a side or rear lot line adjacent to a residential district. Similarly, it would be impossible to have the parking area and have a buffered landscaping area off the rear of this property. So the public service is also supportive of that. There are 2 conditions that the public service has recommended as part of the variance. And I'm just going to draw your attention to condition number 2, which the public service is recommending be deleted and not be included with this. That condition is that the order shall come into force and effect upon the coming into force and effect of the zoning bylaw. And the reason that we are recommending removing that condition is because that would defeat the purpose of the use variance, and it would slow down the ability of the applicant to establish their retail art boutique. So that concludes my summary of the application. Happy to answer any questions.
So local.
Why does an art place need to have a use variance? C1?
Right. So the property is currently R1, and they're rezoning it to C1.
Correct.
But 6 to 12 months is typically how long it takes to conclude a rezoning. And so because they want to start their internal renovations and with their permits, the use variance would speed it up and allow them to do this before the rezoning concludes.
That makes sense. You mentioned we've had this, both sides of Stafford, we've had this before, where the Public Works has some fascination about the fact that they're going to span a lane somehow down Stafford. How has that impacted this project? Because we've gone through this a number of times. There's never going to be another lane going down Stafford unless somehow the city had billions of dollars to expropriate tons of properties. So how does that affect the property, this whole proposal by requiring them to have a 7-foot setback off Stafford?
Without the required 7-foot setback, there would likely have been support for a reduced setback on the property to bring it closer to Stafford.
Right.
But because of the special yard and the inability of, or the public service not supporting varying that because of that special yard as a public works requirement, the applicant is building right up to the 7-foot, but we as the administration we're not supportive of them going within that 7 feet, and the applicant worked with the administration and did not. Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of baked in now. Okay.
Yeah.
The subdivision means 2 properties. I mean, you only say a property here, but in another application said the same thing. So it's really 2 R1Ms being amalgamated to a C1.
Yes,
correct?
There's an underlying lot line, and so as part of this application came in before the changes to the way that we deal with lot consolidation.
So again,
So that's why
it's one lot presently with an underlying lot line on it. So it's more of a, not really taking 2 properties. It's just getting that. Okay, that makes better sense. Good, thank you.
of course.
No other questions?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
So because this is on Stopford, there's lots of commercial on Stopford. But can you explain, like, it, when it comes in, it's coming in as a rezoning, it's commercial. What is the conversation then about CMU? Why not keep some residential open into the future? Do you prompt that? Do you have that conversation with the applicant? They're applying for commercial, but why not CMU?
Right. So the initial conversations predate my involvement with the file, so I can look into that and pull further background for you at a later point. But generally speaking, C1 would enable a little bit of residential here at an RMFS density. I think the reason why the applicant was suggested C1 in particular is because it's a fairly small lot, and because the C1 would have, I believe the maximum height is 39 feet, whereas for CMU, it would be 60 feet. And so there would be questions about perhaps using a zoning agreement to limit certain uses or to put a height cap that would be add additional layers of regulation to the application. Whereas if we just went with the C1 designation, which accommodates exactly what they want to do, it's a fairly clean new zoning district to use. Maybe just to restate that, the C1 district is a much more limited intensity, and it accomplishes exactly what the applicant is looking to do here.
No, that's why they applied, yeah, okay. I'm just wondering if we push the malls and corridors, like, conversation when they come in, but no, okay. That's not.
Right, Madam Clerk?
So first up, we have the applicant, Michael Butterworth, here to speak in support of the application.
Hey, I'm Michael, I'm the applicant.
You have to, so we'll have you come up to the table.
We
That makes more
record.
sense.
Yeah, sit down because we're recording, yeah.
Any chair?
Yep.
It's true.
Know that.
Very friendly. No, it's something.
One.
Okay. Hi, Michael Butterworth, applicant and designer, representing the owner Jennifer Delury, who's also here. I thought that was a great summary. I don't have a lot to add to that summary other than we're really happy that you guys are discussing this and we're looking forward to the results, but happy to take any questions during this period too. Yeah.
I guess just because Councillor Williams raised a really good point.
Yeah.
On malls and quarters, we are looking to have commercial and residential.
Yeah.
Just thoughts on building residential with your building.
So I think with the lot size, initially we felt that it was a pretty humble, good size for a commercial building itself. In terms of the residential aspect, the client doesn't have an interest in that right now, or that hasn't come up. That's maybe not to say way down the road, but unlikely. Like we thought this to be an art gallery kind of all the way through, and that's what we've been pursuing.
All right, thank you.
Cool. Okay, thanks.
So we don't have anybody registered in opposition to the application, so we'll just check to see if anybody else would like to register in opposition to the application. Anybody else who'd like to register for information on the application? Seeing none, we can move on to motions. Or if the applicant would like to speak in rebuttal, I can chase. So we can move on to motions.
On the rezoning, the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
The receipt of public representation be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and forward to the priority. Yeah, Executive Policy Committee via the priority rezoning process.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
That the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Please note that the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representations are permitted on the subdivision rezoning. All persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council.
The variance?
The variance that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
The receipt of public representation be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
But according to subsection 2473 of the City of Winnipeg Charter, the variance A is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and any applicable secondary plan. B does not create a substantial or adverse effect on the amenities, use, safety, convenience of the adjoining property and adjacent area, including the area separated by from the property by a street or waterway. C is a minimum modification of zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effect on the zoning bylaw on the applicant's property. And D is compatible with the area in which the property to be affected is situated. Supporting reasons, I have the applicant reached out to me quite a long time ago about this, and we try to, and it's a very low impact type of business. And they have a lot of history running these galleries. It will be sorry to see them leaving from Academy, but so be that. Still stays in the hood. And the fact that there's no opposition.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
That the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and the variance be approved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
That the public hearing with respect to the
As
application
amended.
my
apologies. So delete condition two in its entirety.
as amended, be approved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
That the public hearing with respect to the application be concluded.
Favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Please note that the committee's decision with respect to this application may be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order issued, which will be mailed to all persons registered.
Next up is item 3, a subdivision rezoning of 580 River Avenue.
Item 3 is a subdivision and rezoning at 580 River Avenue and 91 Wilmot Place under file DAS said 41/2025. In accordance to the City of Winnipeg Charter, the Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing, and the following item will also be heard at the same time, namely, item 4 is a variance at 580 River Avenue and 91 Wilmot Place under file DAB 208956/2025D. Please note communications were received in support of the matter, which have been distributed to all members of council. The process the committee will follow is that the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application, those registered in opposition, and those registered for information. The applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made, however, no new information is permitted. Speakers will be permitted 5 minutes for their presentations. All participants in the Zoom meeting have been muted and will only be permitted to speak when the speaker is called upon. So we'll turn it over to the planner.
Morning, councillors. I'll have to ask you to stick with me here because I'm having some computer connection issues, but I do have the paper report, so I'll refer to that for right now. This is for 580 River and 91 Wilmot. It's a DASZ rezoning as well as a variance application. The subject properties are located in the northeast corner of River Ave and Wilmot Place in the McMillan neighborhood of the Fort Rouge East Fort Garry ward. The subject properties are approximately 5,029 square feet and 5,025 square feet in area. If consolidated, the property would total 10,091 square feet in area. The 580 River property was occupied by a single-family home built in 1914, which was demolished this year. And the 91 Wilmot property is currently occupied by a 5-unit multifamily dwelling, which would be demolished if the proposed development is approved. Under the Complete Communities Direction Strategy 2.0, the properties are within the Established Neighborhoods Mature Communities policy area, and the properties are currently zoned RMFL, Residential Multifamily Large at 580 River, and R2 Residential 2-Family at 91 Wilmot. The applicant intends to construct a 33-unit multifamily building. The building is to be 4 stories and 45 feet in height. The existing 5-unit multifamily dwelling at 91 Wilmot would be demolished. The development would contain 14 vehicle parking spaces located within the building, accessed through the rear lane, and 7 vehicle parking spaces located directly off of the rear lane. The development also requires variances for lot area, density, yards, balcony projections, no on-site garbage enclosure, and parking requirements of the Winnipeg zoning bylaw. The development requires a subdivision in order to consolidate the 2 lots. A rezoning to RMFL is also required to support the proposal, and the variances are detailed in the associated variance report, but I'll highlight one other detail, which is important to this, which is if approved, the 2025 DASZ and DAV applications will connect the proposed 33-unit multifamily building to the currently under construction 40-unit multifamily building located at 600 River Avenue, located immediately adjacent to these subject properties. The two buildings are proposed to connect via a walkway above the public lane. And, that's it for me, but if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
I'm interested, I got just an, I haven't heard that before for commercial, like, so they're gonna put a walkway over a public lane?
Correct, yeah. So the buildings will connect. The walkway, the applicant can probably confirm this, but is basically located on the second or third story, goes directly above the lane and connects the two buildings. So sort of, in some ways they'll act as one building because you can be able to walk in between them, but
The applicant would have some type of agreement with the applicant that, hey man, if this thing falls down or breaks, you're paying for it, not us. We have that kind of agreement in place, because these walkways, they're tricky sometimes. As we found out in Carlton and a few other places. So who's responsible to maintain that walkway and pay for any repairs and all the other kind of stuff? I hope the city's not.
no, the city wouldn't be responsible.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's detailed in the servicing, the zoning agreement as part of the ACG, which is part of this application. So yeah, no, the city wouldn't be liable for anything to do with
The height of the walkway, it's more than ample for garbage trucks and other vehicles smash into it or get caught up in it.
Yeah, I can pull up the plans here just to confirm the actual height. Just give me a moment.
Interesting. Interesting. I don't know this proposed residential level.
Proposed height.
So I can come back and ask you, and I'll ask the applicant when they come.
Yeah, sure.
They'll probably have it on there. No problem. Okay. Sounds good. Interesting. Okay.
You ready?
So first up, we have the applicant, Zach Nimchuk. He's here to speak in support of the application. And you can have a seat at the end of the table. You have 5 minutes to start your presentation.
Welcome.
Good morning, as councillors and city staff. Thank you for taking the time to hear this proposal at River and Wilmot. Yeah, I just want to first touch on the that walkway. The walkway was previously approved under the building permit for the neighboring property at 600 Wilmot, and then the original at 580 before the additional lot was added to it. And so all those agreements are it's covered by the property owner, and the encroachment easements have all been taken care of as well.
Thank you.
So yeah, just a quick rundown on this project. As mentioned, it's a consolidation of two lots. One was previously approved and had a building planned, but the opportunity came up to grow the building a bit more, provide more units and more parking, whereas the previous addition of this lot did not have any indoor parking, whereas now we have 14 indoor stalls, and so that's an increased amenity, and always more parking is always a good thing to have. So in total, this building has 33 units, and the neighboring sister property at 600 River has 40 units for a total of 73 units. And there will also be 20 of those units would be supportive housing. And there is a recommendation for, I believe, 6 units to be affordable and some of those to be deeply affordable, I believe is what the city was requesting. So yeah, just a quick rundown. We did some studies on the site that our southeastern property corner does not interfere with the 45-degree angular plane from the neighboring properties. So views and light would not be impacted as a result of this development. Materiality, we're looking at Tyndall stone at the main entrance of this portion of the building, brick along the entire main floor, and then a fiber cement panel system for the upper stories. Under the previous approval from 3 or so years ago, this was the 600 Wilt River property. As you can see, it's a high quality design. It follows the curve of River in Wellington. This language would be similar on our property that we're discussing today. These were just some of the renderings that were prepared, and then the property at 580 River. Yeah, so I'm happy to take any questions if you have.
Questions? Good. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
So up next, we have Jeff Milnes, who's registered to speak in support of the application. And if Jeff, if you would like to speak, you can come at the end of the table. Okay, perfect. Do we have anybody else registered who wants to register in support of the application? Anybody else who would like to register in opposition to the application? We have nobody registered at the moment. And anybody who would like to register for information? Seeing none, we can move to motions.
Ready? I move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
I move that the receipt of public representations be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
I move that the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and forwarded to the Executive Policy Committee via the priority rezoning process. My supportive reasons is in line with the public service supportive reasons that are contained in the report with respect to the Osborne Village Plan and the addition of housing, including affordable housing. So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
I move that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
I'll move on to the variance.
Sorry, no, just do wait.
Yes, no, I promise.
Please note that the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representations are permitted on the subdivision and rezoning. All persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council. Thanks.
I move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
I move that the receipt of public representations be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
I move that in accordance with subsection 2473 of the City of Winnipeg Charter, the variance is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and any applicable secondary plans does not create a substantial adverse effect on the amenities, use, safety, and convenience of the adjoining property and adjacent area, including the area separated from the property by a street or waterway, is the minimum modification of the zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effect of the zoning bylaw on the applicant property and is compatible with the area in which the property be affected is situated. The supporting reasons the same as the subdivision and rezoning hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
That the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and the variance be approved. So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
I move that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded with thanks to the applicant.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Please note that the committee's decision with respect to this application may be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order issued, which will be mailed to all persons registered.
Next up is the subdivision rezoning at 1416 Quarterland Avenue. Here's
Wow.
Item 5 is a subdivision rezoning at 1460 Gordon Avenue under file DAS said 42/2025. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing, and the following item will also be heard at the same time, namely, Item 6 is a variance at 1460 Gordon Avenue under file DAV 223033/2025D. Please note communications were received in support of and in opposition to the matter, which have been distributed to all members of council. The process the committee will follow is that the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application, those registered in opposition, and those registered for information. The applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. Speakers will be permitted 5 minutes for their presentations. All participants in the Zoom meeting have been muted and will only be permitted to speak when called upon. I'll turn it over to the planner.
So this is a subdivision and rezoning that is seeking to rezone the property to the CMU Commercial Mixed Use District. The property is located at the southwest corner of Niagara Street and Corden Avenue in the Central River Heights neighborhood of the River Heights Fort Garry Ward. It is located in an established neighborhood, mature communities policy area of Complete Communities 2.0. The property is currently split zoned R1M residential single family medium district and C1 commercial community neighborhood district, and is approximately 15,404 square feet in area. The applicant intends to construct a mixed-use multifamily residential building with a ground floor commercial space. The building would be 4 stories in height, have a 5.8 foot rear yard setback to the lane, a 10-foot front yard setback to the Niagara Street property line, a north corner side yard setback of 5 feet to the Corden Avenue property line, and a 20-foot south side yard setback to the abutting single-family house. It would have ground floor commercial units with the residential units located on the upper floors. As part of the rezoning, the Public Service is recommending a zoning agreement because the CMU Commercial Mixed Use District permits a height of 60 feet. Public Service has recommended a zoning agreement that includes a maximum height of 50 feet, excluding permitted projections. In addition, a requirement for plan approval by the Director of Planning, Property and Development has been included with that zoning agreement. There are associated variances with this application, 7 in total. So I will run through them now. There's a rear yard of 5.8 feet to the commercial portion instead of 10 feet. And this one is linked with variance number 4, which is a rear yard of 5.8 feet to the residential portion instead of 25 feet. They're regulating the same yard, but because one part of the building is commercial and one part is residential, they're captured as separate variances. There's a front yard of 10 feet to the commercial portion instead of 30 feet. So that's fronting Niagara Street. There's a north corner side yard of 5 feet to the residential portion instead of 20 feet. That would be facing Corden. There's a lot area per dwelling unit of 770 square feet instead of 800 square feet. 23 parking spaces instead of 44 spaces, and insufficient street edge landscaping. There are several associated conditions with this that are an important part of the administration's support for all of the variances. So the first is condition number 2, which is that prior to the issuance of any development permits, a signed service agreement with a car share provider shall be submitted to and approved by the Director of Planning, Property and Development. The service agreement shall include 2 car share vehicles and 2 dedicated parking stalls for the car share vehicles. Just a matter of clarification, this should actually be 1 car share, and that's an error. That's my error. So the administration is recommending that be amended to be 1 car share. The next is condition number 3, that prior to the issuance of any development permits, the developer shall provide a shared parking agreement showing an additional 5 parking stalls or other suitable alternative to the Director of Planning, Property and Development. And then the 4th condition is that the developer shall plant a minimum of 8 trees within 12 months of occupancy permits being issued. And so these conditions are important because they form a large part of the crux of the support for the reduced parking and for the landscaping variance. So car share is typically, the administration considers a car share to be worth an additional 12 parking stalls. So that raises the parking count on the site. And then in addition to that, the administration is also recommending a shared parking agreement for an additional 5 stalls. And so between the car share and the shared parking agreement, if both of those were brought in, then the total deficiency of parking stalls would be 4, which is a fairly small amount on a building this large, and this is why the administration is supportive of it. And regarding the requirement for 8 trees, This is because the applicant required a landscaping variance. There's no trees being planted on the Corden Avenue frontage. And where the building is positioned, it would be impossible to put trees there, which is a fairly consistent standard along Corden here. And so requiring 8 trees elsewhere on the site is a way to address the deficiency in the landscaping. That concludes my summary of the application, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
A few. So right now, there's the height is the one that I'll be talking about a fair bit today. Right now, by right, they have an R1, they have 39 feet.
That's right.
And then as a right on C1, they have 39 feet.
That's right.
Correct. This is proposed to be 50 feet.
I believe it's 45 feet. We gave them a little bit of extra space in the zoning agreement amendment, or sorry, in the zoning agreement height cap.
Okay, so you're saying the variance there is 6 feet?
So their building as it's currently shown would be 45 feet in height.
45 feet in height? Why do we give them 50 feet?
We would support a 50-foot tall building here. And so the administration, pardon me.
Yeah.
And so often as the final plans are drawn up, there's a little bit of a building might be slightly taller than it was originally planned to be, and the extra 5 feet is intended to recognize that. If we couldn't support 50 feet, we would have recommended a lower height cap.
But maybe that may happen. There's some pretty impressive correspondence from some residents. One, and I'll have maybe the administration, the applicant, this one. Does that 45 feet include the elevator shaft?
No, an elevator shaft is considered a permitted projection, and so they are allowed to go beyond the height cap.
Okay. And so we're trying to mitigate the parking and the parking issue. It comes off the lane, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Why? So we've done these shared stalls before. Some, it may work in the area, I have no idea. Why wasn't just, hey, you're doing 2 car shares?
That would be another, so if they weren't able to find the additional 5 stalls, the way that the condition is worded would enable an additional car share instead.
Okay.
The idea is that as it's currently shown, the administration would like to see a little bit more parking here.
Right.
And the applicant was amenable to that. And so this condition would say, well, an additional 5 stalls rented from a neighboring property, or car share if you prefer.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. And just to clarify, in the report, it says 0 trees and X number of shrubs. Now we're including 8 trees.
That's correct, yeah, as a
Okay.
condition on the variance.
That's right. Why, we're here for 1460 Corden Avenue rezoning, but it appears, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, that this property is a Niagara property.
The address it has a Corden address. Agreed that it has double frontage on Niagara
Or
and
Niagara.
Corden, but it's a fairly standard, also where you're flanking it out.
Yeah, it just got a little confusing when we're looking at front yard. What front yard? Whose front yard? What side yard? So now it took me a while to decipher that. That's fine. Okay, I can answer that. Okay. So I'm gonna keep that at 35. How many commercial units are proposed here? 1 or 2 or just square footage?
The applicant might be a better person to speak to about this, but the way that the plans are currently shown are 2. But I understand in speaking with the applicant, they expect it to be a 1 commercial unit. However, they would be able to elaborate on that further.
Well, that's for sure. Thank you. And just confirm, one of the other concerns in the neighborhood, mostly the people living on Queenston, besides some traffic parking issues, was shading. When I looked through the application, it seemed to be March, where they're going to get the most shade will be March morning, September morning. for about 3-4 houses on Queenston. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be, yes.
One done already. Yeah, can you explain a little bit about the, so we know it's 50, maybe 45 only, we'll find out. But they also dropped the back, on the back lane to 3 stories.
That's right.
Can you explain why that was done?
Yes, the applicant would, as the designer would probably be better to speak to that, but often the way that our policies function is we have compatibility and context sensitive development. And one of the factors that is included within those is that it doesn't necessarily mean only the same thing will be permitted, but it means that if there's going to be change, then there should be mitigating factors involved. And so with a property like this, where there's mostly 2-story single family dwellings in the south and west of it, one way to mitigate the taller building is through the significant south side yard, which is 20 feet, and then to include a step down from 4 stories to 3 stories as the building transitions to the lane, in order to reduce the building mass. So
the 3-story runs along the lane.
Yeah, for the vast majority of it, a small portion of it is 4 stories though.
5 questions. Pages are done. And I'll be for the developer regarding the patio size. Got that. I didn't see any bicycle parking in here. Is that my miss or?
There would be a little bit of bicycle parking. There's no variance required to it, and so they are providing it.
Okay.
I can find the number. I'll
ask it about. I didn't see the plan. Visitor parking, got to talk about that. Loading zone, got to talk about that. We're good, almost done. Okay. So, because we're not too sure, I'm pretty sure the neighborhood would be very, very upset to find out that commercial building's becoming a bar, a 68 patio bar. And right now we don't know what's in there. Would that be satisfied? I know there may be restricted uses, but that gets pretty complicated, I find. Would there be, so obviously, if this passes, it will come back to community committee. Hopefully the committee will amend that. So it comes back to community committee for approval. It seems like a lot of details here. But other than just trying to do restrictive use, primitive uses, and also period of time, like a bar open at 3 a.m. with a 68-person patio and then smack in a residential neighborhood would be very upsetting. So how do you advise to try to maintain that control or protection for the neighborhood?
Well, so a bar would be considered a drinking establishment, which is defined as a drinking establishment under the Winnipeg zoning bylaw, and drinking establishments are a conditional use in the CMU zoning district, meaning that the applicant would require, the way it would be set up currently is they would require, if they were to try and establish a drinking establishment within 2 years, then their conditional use would have to come back to this committee.
Okay.
If they were to try to establish it outside of that 2-year window, then it would be the decision of the administration. But it would be posted on site, and the committee would, or the public would have the ability to see it advertised. And I'm not saying that the administration would support a drinking establishment here, but assuming that it was going to be supported, then or approved by the administration, the residents and the public could appeal that decision.
And second question on the same subject. So time restriction. I've had it before in a couple other places on Academy, especially where they're really not interested in open till 2 a.m. Even as a restaurant. Did that be added to this?
Yeah, in the zoning agreement, if the committee would like a condition that limits the hours of operation for the business to X until Y, absolutely, you can include that as a condition of the zoning agreement. And if you have hours in mind, I can draft up the condition as the.
I'll ask the developer first where they're intended to. The other question I have, once the developer will be, maybe you can tell me garbage. One of the people in opposition mentioned how the garbage is going to be picked up. Is that my eyesight's losing it, so I couldn't really see it. Where is it? Enclosed garbage? Yeah,
It should be
off
enclosed.
the lane.
It would be off the lane, yes. Oh, well. Yes, there's a garbage enclosure at the southwest corner.
So right in the corner,
Yeah, the southwest corner, away from Gordon.
and it's enclosed.
It is, yes.
Yeah, so we're not going to have that. Look. Okay, all right, I have some other questions for the developer, but I'll get back to that later. Thank you.
So up first, we have the applicant, Pedro Chagas, who is here to speak in support of the application. You'll have 5 minutes to start your presentation.
US is all full here. I think we got it. Good morning, Happy New Year.
Share your screen as well.
Perfect. Can everybody see that now? No? Good morning, counselors, administration. Thank you very much for receiving our application and working with us diligently over the last, since January, towards, the proposal that's been put forward. We've also had public consultations and public communications with neighbors throughout the area that we did. So I wanted to present the project. More importantly, I did provide a formal response to the neighbors' letters that came from Stop 1460 project. And so we did provide a formal response to the entire group and shared it with administration, council, as well as all participants in the public housing or a public open house or any emails received to that date. And we've been continuing discussions with both the west neighbors as well as the south neighbors towards favorable revisions that don't affect the variance but provide aesthetic values and setback enhancements towards their support. So just in brief terms, we maintained complete transparency and to continue a constructive and dialectic dialogue consistent with our recent open house. We are providing this response to the letter sent by Stop 1460 at Gordon Avenue. Many of the concerns raised in that letter were also discussed during the open house and have been addressed through proactive design revisions, interface mitigation, and transport demand management strategies now incorporated into the project. We have shared these responses with all participants who attended the open house in order to ensure that every stakeholder receives the same information, the same policy content, and the same opportunity to understand how the project aligns with current City of Winnipeg planning direction. In particular, concerns that were brought up was land use compatibility and zoning intent. The letter asserts that our 20-unit development is completely inappropriate for the neighborhood and does not fit the existing context. In contrast, our Winnipeg 2045 defines us as a mature community and an appropriate corridor of Gordon Avenue with context-sensitive density, which we've maintained. We've increased residential capacity in the mature community to meet the requirements of 2045, 50% increase. Again, off major streets. Because of 1460 directly major corridor, it meets the conditions of mid-scale residential densification. The proposed scale is consistent with other recently approved infill projects along these corridors. Our building is 45 feet to the parapet. The requirement that planning is provided to increase it to 50 is primarily only because of the elevator shaft, which is it's set back from the face of the building, so it's literally not even visible in terms of the articulation of the building. So the parapet maintains 45 feet. Just as information, a single family home can be built up to 35 feet in River Heights. As we know, many of them are being knocked down and new ones being built to 39 feet. Our C1 did allow us to build to 39 feet, and we are building. This proposal is at 45 feet with a setback on the lane side, reducing the building by an additional 10 feet, bringing it down to 35 feet, which is done for several reasons. It's done to enhance the rear yards of our west property neighbors to ensure that they have sunlight during the late morning, afternoon, throughout the year. This is illustrated here on our sun angles, which were all provided at our open house, basically allowing the rear property line, as you can see in the right corner here, the building's been truncated to ensure the sun angle is maintained towards the west property lines and west neighbors. This is a common practice to be used in doing proper intensification of our urban corridors. So the building respects that requirement, and we have sun path diagrams that have been, constructed to illustrate this objectively. So the last two sheets provide the sun angles and sun shading effects on the neighboring properties. Fortunately, because we're on the south side of the property, it doesn't put into shade many of the properties that are obviously on the north, facing north would have shadow, which is corded. In our instance, our south neighbor has full non-interrupted sun, and our west neighbors are interrupted in the morning. Neighborhood character and build form. The letter raises concerns about the building massing, loss of sunlight, and perceived incompatibilities. What we've done in the design of the building.
We need another 2 minutes.
Please, that would be great.
2 minute extension.
All in favor?
Right. These urban projects are complex. All balconies have been designed fully recessed, as you've seen in previous projects. We don't have lookouts, meaning we don't have a perch of balconies. We have all incest, which maintains both the privacy for our neighbors to the west and to the south. And in addition to that, in the consultation with our neighbors to the west, the two properties directly from Corydon, we've illustrated to them what we're not putting in railings. We're going to be placing in louvered protection to the balcony. So basically when a tenant or a resident look at the balcony, they can't see each other because of the louver of a 30 degrees will force the view towards Corydon. And this is done respectively to enhance privacy between the neighbors to the west and north or south and our residents in the building, not to have people looking upon them and vice versa. So these are important aspects that we've created. The other important aspect is the setback that we have to the south face of our building. It's been worked out with our existing neighbor, proper setback, landscaping, fencing, and he's reviewed this and he's in support of the application given those constraints. Traffic, we've spoke about, and parking, car share program, we're totally supportive of that. We've provided 6 parking for bicycles on grade and 20 interior parking bicycles to enhance both walkable city, efficient city, and our energy demands of the future. Public engagement, we've engaged within 90 meters of all residents, hand delivered personally. We had an open house for engagement. We engaged in many discussions and emails. And so we're proud of that engagement, and I think we exceeded.
To wrap up,
Variances, they're all sensitive intensifications, adaptive reuse, optimize the land utilization with strict zoning standards, where we try to work with the setbacks and enhance the setbacks with landscaping, building massing design. In conclusion, we feel we're consistent with our Winnipeg 2045 and the vision that the city has for the next 20 years. River Heights is going to become and is a beautiful neighborhood that people want to age in place. Young people want to move into but can't afford homes. And people that want to maintain their residency in River Heights and live closer to their kids. This gives us an opportunity for that. Thank you. Any questions, please?
We'll start off at the bottom and move way up. So the commercial unit, or units?
So right now I'll go to that drawing. We, at this point of the proposal, when it was submitted, we had two proposed units of 23 plus minus square footage units. We've been fortunate that if the project were to be approved, we have a confirmed offer to lease from a very reputable baker, coffee shop, very congruent with the neighborhood requirements. They're signed up, and I don't want to divulge your name. I think it would be inappropriate, but it's a group that runs several locations today in Winnipeg and have signed on to build a bakery with a coffee shop providing. No bar. We're not interested in that kind of establishment. We're looking for sensitive neighborhood retail uses in this neighborhood and in our building. We're not looking for any kind of bar here.
So with this potential baker, would one of the, I'm still not sure, I'm still trying to, this has been an interesting one. I think you've done some great work, but I've also really heard the neighborhood as well. So the commercial, coming back to community committee for plan approval, would we know who that would include knowing who the occupant is? Is that something that's?
It's if it's appropriate to bring the OTL is an official document that we have, and I can divulge the name of the operator. But I haven't asked them to do that.
No, I think we get that plan approval. That's fine. That's where it'll matter.
Yes.
And if that, and then also tag to that would be limiting the hours.
Correct.
Ensuring that it's not open till it's a bakery that's doing coffee or whatever in the morning. I think that would be a problem. Like I say, after 10 o'clock, it gets pretty problematic.
Yes.
So would that be something you'd see in your, not knowing what you know, be something that's acceptable to put a time limit to 10 p.m. or something?
Yeah, I think that's not an uncommon request, in particular in mature communities to have those restrictions. I think this operator is very much that type of operator and understands those constraints. I can't speak for them, but I certainly believe they would be they would accept those restrictions.
So you have two entrances, one off Corden and one off Niagara. So the one off Corden is for just the commercial?
Yes, so the interface between Corden and the building's been set back, as is noted in the planning report. We further recessed the base of the building to interact with the sidewalk. So we have a patio that interfaces with the public street. And we would have a shared entrance to two CRUs on the lower level, commercial retail units for the lack of. And right now this space is open for is 1 by 110. 110 in particular. And then we have the entrance.
But I'm just gonna get you to sit down just to make sure that we're recording you fine.
And then the entrance to the residence is from the corner of Niagara and Concordant.
Okay.
And so it's right in this location here.
Yeah.
So we have landscape buffer, and then we lead into the entrance of the residence. And then we have the 6 biking stalls that are parked, again, screened and further landscaping. Dylan came forward with additional trees. And we had no problem, and we've actually updated this drawing with the trees allocated to the frontage of Corden.
So residential won't be flowing, commercial, more my bigger, commercial won't be flowing onto Niagara. They'll
No.
be flowing out to
Yeah.
Corden.
Off Corden,
Okay,
correct.
and the patio that's on the side of the building is kind of tucked away there, so people won't be hearing that patio all night.
No, this will be, you'd hear the cars before you hear
Yeah.
the patio, and it's further screened by the building massing. You can kind of I can illustrate this here, this view. So you can kind of see this diagram with the red shading shows the interface and what the value added quality elements that we did, because we've reduced the setbacks. What we've done is also mask the building in 3 dimensions, interface with the corner of 14's, the corner of Corden and Niagara, encouraging the traffic at that location. And so if you can see it in the perspective, you know, it enhances that corner. And so the entrance to the residence is these double doors here with a 2-story window, which is the foyer. And then these are the tenants on the lower level with the patio interfacing. Even though we have a reduction in landscaping, we've intensified it with bushes. So we have a lot more bushes and landscaping and railings to interface that setback to give quality back in that reduction. And then the trees aren't updated on this perspective, but there's an additional 8 trees along this perimeter.
Right, so the name, there's a couple of themes in the story on the opposition side, besides the massing and the size. Can you explain the shadow, how you're mitigating, you explained it a little bit, can you go back to the shadowing?
Yes. So what we've done is we've done, you know, the required shading studies that are 2-dimensional drawings, and they don't really depict the issue properly. So what we did is we illustrated that backlane elevation and the interface with the backlane. So basically requiring this that maintain a 45-degree to the property line of the building. So what we've shown in this shaded element, by pairing the building's backlane exposure by reducing it down to the 35 feet, it allows the sunlight to be brought forward into the west neighbors without it impacting their sun value. And that's why we terrace the building forward. And you can kind of see it here and how it actually looks as a massing element. You have your 3-story here. We've also spoken to the neighbors to the west, and we've actually told them, because this is a stair here, we can actually truncate that further. In fact, doing exactly what our Dutch sun diagram requests us to do, which is to chop out that top little truncated triangle. And we're willing to do that. And that's why we've illustrated it here. And again, that could be part of our plan approval. We've also, you know, set the lower portion of the building back. We've allowed for a sidewalk that transverses our back lane. So we have the ability, just bear with me, we have a sidewalk that you can actually connect with the public sidewalk all along the entire back lane, which is something that you don't typically see. So the sort of each color connects with the street sidewalk all along the back lane. So in addition to the setback, we've enhanced that with a proper sidewalk.
And that'd be your responsibility to keep that clear?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Put some snow on it for you. Okay, let's see where they're moving our ways up. No permission from that already. Parking, we'll get back to the administration on parking. Administration. Can you show me the parking access from the back lane?
Yes. So during our deliberations with planning, it became clear that there's 2 accesses presently on the property that serves the C1. One was off the back lane in this vicinity here, and there's another one that came off Niagara. Administration, you know, recommended that we close the Niagara one and reinstate the boulevard. And so the entrance, we have 6 stalls off the back lane along the west side of the building, and the entrance is to the parquet, the lower level, is at the rear of the property from the back lane noted here.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so I know we've got other issues with safety concerns, and I'll say getting rid of that lane off Niagara, it does help improve safety, so that is welcome. Cool.
Feedback.
So you had a public open house, a developer open house, you had about, it's kind of freaky.
We normally hear that.
I know.
Yeah.
I've been
Josh
many
is-
times.
Not sure what's going on.
Josh is linking in, it's in council,
It's funny.
it's not chimes, it is feedback though.
Sounds like it's coming from the next room.
It's council. Travis is
Could be.
doing something downstairs, maybe Holly.
That's okay, I can,
Josh is on it, Josh is on it.
I'll plow through.
Yeah,
Plow through. So you had a public open house, about 50 people attended.
Yes.
And you opened the invitation up for people to contact you after the public open house. Did you have people follow up with that? offer?
Yes, yeah, well, I had a standing offer if anybody wanted to contact me by email, phone, or visit, and I could have a personal presentation to them on the boards. We had multiple emails from, in particular, our northern adjacent neighbor. We communicated extensively regarding the 20-foot setback to the north, to the south of our property. And I thought we were very successful with him. We also spoke to the neighbors to the east, west of us, in particular around the balcony requirements. And so what we did there was, in both instances, we've added and augmented aesthetic elements into the design of the building that don't affect the variances, but provide additional aesthetic controls that allow us to address the neighbor's concerns. So to the north of us, or to the south, particular concern the neighbor had there was ensuring that we maintain the existing concrete fence that exists 3 feet within our property line. We've agreed to that. And so if you look at this drawing I have up here on your left-hand side, the fence line that was originally on our property line, we're going to maintain the existing one 3 feet into our property. And so that'll be continued and maintained. We're going to rebuild that concrete fence. It's a bit dilapidated now, but we're going to replace it, rebuild it in the same location it is today. And the neighbor was very favorable about that. They also wanted to understand what the garbage enclosure, so I shared with them all the details we have on the garbage enclosure, that it's fully contained, enclosed. His concern was noise and any, bugs and things of that sort. So we've increased the landscape buffer between our southern neighbor. Originally it was limited to where that fence is. We've actually greened that another 10 feet into our property line and set our building back 20 feet. And all balconies facing both west and north will be treated with the louvered visual control, to respect privacy requirements, both on our future tenants as well as our neighbors.
Double check. Okay, so you've answered all my questions. Oh, yeah, I'm moving up now. So there was some concerns about precedent setting, and I share that. The president that I'm here right now, though, and I'm next administration, is the president of 50 feet versus 45 feet, which is 6 feet versus 11 feet higher. I'd like to move it to 45 max. But you're saying the 50 is to allow the parapet?
No, so we have no intent of being higher than 45 feet with the building. We respect that, the scale of that, just in comparison, if you look at Royal LePage or the dental office just down the street on Waterloo, both those buildings are 39 feet at the parapet.
Yeah.
We're proposing 45 feet our parapet. As we can appreciate, there are utilities in the building, i.e. the elevator shaft does require to be about 4 to 5 feet above the roof level.
Okay.
That's the only thing would exceed that 45 feet, but it also has been designed to enhance the massing. And so as a result of that, what we did in the elevation, you can kind of see it in the parapet, the perspective drawing. You can kind of see that elevator poking out the top here. We've introduced that into that setback massing that we have on the building to respect that height. But 45 feet is like I said, relative to the new homes being built in River Heights, they're 39 feet. We're literally 6 feet above modern homes in River Heights, which are being built everywhere right now. Unfortunately, our 1947 building stock, including my own home, don't have those heights, but we're becoming, we're certainly not the majority anymore. Anything in the next 20 years is going to be pretty significantly higher.
Yeah, unfortunately, now that we're allowing 39 feet mid-block, I am looking forward to when that happens in this neighborhood. With lots of sarcasm, I say that.
Yeah.
It'd be mid-block would be atrocious. You are at the end cap, which is a little bit better for sure. But I definitely heard the neighborhood talk about
Absolutely
being a concern.
Absolutely. And we share that. We don't want to be an eyesore in the community. We want to enhance. This is a wonderful neighborhood. This corridor is going to be probably the name of a huge example of urban infill in Canada. It's a beautiful corridor with great potential for intensification.
Any other questions?
Not at this point, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. I can leave this up or pull it out.
No, take it down.
Okay, thank you.
So up next, we have Brendan Eloria, who's registered in support of the application. Would you like to speak to the application?
Here to support.
Perfect. So up next, we have Stephen Glockner. And Stephen, would you like to speak in support of the, would you like to speak? Is there anybody else who hasn't registered who'd like to speak in support of the application? Seeing none, we'll move on to those in opposition. So first up, we have Rob Lucky. So Rob, you can come sit at the end of the table.
I know that Rob and I talked earlier, and this is his first time
Around.
coming in.
Yeah,
the
be
delegation,
gentle.
so you gotta be gentle.
Thanks for sending your presentation.
So Rob, just so you know, understand how this works, you kind of talk for me, just
Okay.
to make sure that there's no back and forth. So go ahead. You got 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay, thank you. Well, we started a petition, we're at 108 people so far. And
And Rob, I apologize. I forgot we've changed the time limits. It's 5 minutes. So
I got an email, it was 10.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Sort of based on that, I have no idea.
The extension.
I'm gonna be.
Yeah, we can give you extensions.
Anyway, there's a petition, there's a lot of the neighbors were caught off guard. The sign was posted just before Christmas. And people are out of town. The one neighbor immediately across the back lane is sick. She couldn't come. And the person that started the Stop Coalition, he's flying. He's out of town right now. He's a pilot. But anyway, I guess when they said, does anybody want to speak? I stood there and everybody else stepped backwards. So I'm the guy. But anyway, I live at 511 Queenston Street. So I'm on the west side of Queenston. I don't know if you have.
You have your presentation.
Yeah, I actually revised it a bit. So if you look down, it should say 8 balconies and 22 windows instead of 21 balconies. I thought the parking stalls were balconies all the way up, but anyway. So I've been I'm a retired appraiser, assessor with the city in the apartment building section. I've got 40 years experience. And as said, there's no doubt in my mind that if I try and sell my house and somebody's standing in the backyard, if you look at the second page of what I sent in, it's the view across the street. So there's, from my front steps, I look at 3 houses. So if you stack 3 houses on top of them, that's what I'll be looking at. And we'll be looking at me. The people across the street backing on this are going to have 22 windows, 8 balconies looking into their backyard. When they go to sell, they're in deep trouble. Because if purchasers go into their backyard, they're going to look up and they're going, I don't want to sit back here. So that's going to devalue their properties, our properties. And, you know, from being an assessor, they have categories which are called proximity to commercial. So we're going to get our assessments reduced, but that doesn't help us when we go to sell. I'm not really concerned about the sun coming up at 7 or whatever. I'm in bed still because I'm retired. But it's what I'm looking at, and it's all the windows. All the development in the area is 1 and 2 stories. When we moved there, we didn't have a clue, and I'm in the business, that a 4-story building could ever end up there. We were a little concerned being 3 doors from Corden, and that's worked out fine. And backing on the school, that's worked out great, except for all the chaos at 3:30. It's just a free for all, but it's fine. Our granddaughter comes over, she plays in the park with us, and it's good. But I'm really concerned about, like we talk about reducing the parking from 40 something to 20 something. That doesn't take into consideration the customers at the 5,000 square feet of commercial space. So just, if it's a bakery, people are going to go there for breakfast. They're all going to be parking on Queenston, Niagara. There's 3 bus stops right there on Corden. So there's nowhere to park on Corden. The people come, the teachers park in front of our house. That's fine. Myself and a neighbor, we clean
Okay, move extension for 2 minutes. All in favor?
Well, why don't you do 5?
Do you want that?
Yeah, I'll try not to round them, sorry.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion's carried. Continued.
Okay. It's really, really dangerous there, and it's going to get really bad. We've lived here 4 years. For 40 years, we lived in the 200 block of Waterloo. That house we sold, it got demolished. There's a huge house there now. But we saw, I think it's called Leopold's or whatever it is. That started out as a restaurant and this and that. Now it's a flat out bar. Same thing, I remember Gusto, same thing. And they started as a restaurant, and it's still a fancy restaurant, but the bar goes, the people are sitting outside, and you can't park anywhere near there. Luckily, we've had garages we can park in the back, but our friends can't come and park there. So, our final thoughts are, you know, if you're gonna, I think, seriously affect our life savings, which is our house, you have to ask yourself, is there a need? Not, you know, is it a pretty picture building and not, is there a real need for it? Well, Winnipeg, I can tell you, because I was in the business 12 years, is swamped right now with multifamily. And the big initiative with the city, and it's part of 2045, was being on rapid transit. Well, there's all kinds of buildings built on rapid transit in the Fort Rouge and the Pemby is, there's all kinds of that unit. And then on top of that, we're going to have, they're estimating 2,100 units going into the Capion Barracks. The vacancy rates are, like I said, are already going up. They're going to go up further. And it's not needed. A bakery I'm okay with, but we don't need 4 stories of apartments. So, and the one neighbor that was sick and couldn't come said the ramp coming out of the parkade into the back lane, all the headlights are going to shine right in their properties. The back lane is going to be chaos. There's going to be people coming trying to find places to park for the restaurant. There's going to be people coming in and out of the parkade. There's no way around the property except to go all the way down the back lane. So you're going to be having all these people going up and down the back lane on that side of Queens. But anyway, that's about all I can think of. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any questions, so thank you very much for your presentation.
So up next, we have Dina Long, who's registered in opposition. Dina has registered via Zoom. We don't have anything in the Zoom waiting room, so we can move on to Ken Christensen. And Ken, would you like to speak in opposition? Or you're registered, would you like to speak?
Would I like to speak? Yes, I would.
Ken, welcome.
Hello.
You have 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I live at 516 Queenston. We've lived there for 38 years. Traffic has always been a problem because of the school and the picking up now of every child rather than them walking home. The traffic, as Bob mentioned, is absolutely insane around the place. There's bus stops and there is absolutely no need for a 4-story block on a piece of property that is too small for what it wants. And we had considerable problem when the access to the real estate that took over the condominium bank came in from the back lane. I can personally say I had the scared out of me at least 6 times with people coming out of the parking lot. And the back lane will be just an absolute zoo. Outside of that, our back lane will look up into a number of people looking down at you. There'll be no privacy. There'll be nothing there. It's a lovely neighborhood. Everybody likes each other. We've always got along, and there's no reason why you're going to go ahead and have 300 people in opposition to this. At least every person I have talked to is just beyond themselves. And we can't understand, first of all, why the secrecy began, and all of a sudden we get a brochure in the mail, nicely done, and it says, here's what you've done. In all fairness to Pedro, who I've known for 40 years, people are just beyond themselves. They don't know what to do. There has been very little discussion, and we go to a dog and pony, and here is all the nice mock-ups made, everything is done. He's got beautiful pictures and everything else. To us, it's a fait accompli, which doesn't make any sense at all. As Bob says, if I'm going to go ahead and sell my property, I would probably have to rent a parking lot for somebody even to park in front of my house. I can ask you to come any time of the day or week you want, and the street is always plugged. You're gonna have a restaurant, you're gonna have people visiting these apartments, where are they gonna park? There is no place. The amount of property that's available in the city is endless. Why would you wanna put a big building on a lot that's too small? That's our opposition. And I think it makes more sense for the city to say, in this previous bylaws, they prevented this type of development, and we don't see any reason why it should go ahead right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Just so you know, here today is the decision body that goes up through council that makes those decisions. So it's not a fait accompli.
I understand.
The decision.
Thank you very much for listening to me.
Perfect. Thank you.
Up next, we have Tony Kuda, who's registered to speak in opposition. Tony, would you like to speak today? No, but you're registered in opposition.
Just information.
For information. Do we have anybody else who has not registered that would like to speak in opposition? Anyone else in opposition? Anybody else for information? Seeing that, we can move on.
Okay. All right. Now, any questions before we start?
Yeah, administration? Yeah, so, okay, so first one, rather than going from the bottom up, I'll start from the top down. How do you see anyway, like, first of all, so if we do nothing, we leave it as is, the developer to build, and I understood the concerns of the residents, they talked about the privacy issues. But regardless of that, going forward, and not like some people supported these bylaw changes, some didn't, but that is the law of the land. They'd be allowed to do 39 feet for both buildings, for the C1 and the RMF. That is actually an answer, yes. And the side yards would be on the RMF rather than having that buffer to the residential property. That would be maximum, well, it could be less. Well, it had to be a minimum of 3 feet. Is that correct? Versus the 20 plus feet that we're getting?
Yeah, it's a little bit weird because it's one whole lot as it currently stands, and so the lot would change depending on what they did, but it's 3 to 4 feet.
I'm under,
Like
maybe,
the outside yard.
the lot size, right now, if we say, the committee goes, no, we're not going forward with this, the developer would have the opportunity to build a C1 lot as of right and an RMFL, M lot as of right. Is that correct?
Yes, but they would need to do a subdivision first.
Right. Right, or
have
they
and then
can
they
do
can
one
do
RMF, whatever. But regardless, it's not gonna change many of the height levels, like.
There'd be no change to the height.
No, okay. So, okay, that's fair. I'll get to that point at the end. So the precedent setting of, and it's true, there is, I think there's the dental place that was a nice battle there. For the people across to, I think it was Niagara, somewhere out there, no, it's probably Oxford. So if we say 50 feet in the future, some other developer is gonna come by and say, or even planners will go, well, here are the properties, we got another 50-foot one over here, so it's good. This is 52. That's my concern about saying it's 50. So I don't want to say it's 50. I don't really want to maybe say it's 45. I think 39, I didn't really like that one already. But again, I'm trying to figure a way to get knowledge here. So I do not want to have it at 45. Do not want it at 50. Right. That's something that will not be terribly horrible. That can be done.
Absolutely, like an amendment to the condition. I can just, it's set at 50, so I could just, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but 45 is what I heard initially, so we could change the language to make it 45 or whatever else it.
If I may add, the only reason that we generally place the 50 feet as opposed to 45, or shouldn't say only, but one other reason is basically, Dylan mentioned this, but just to permit if there is any small changes, I'll just give you an example. If there was a case where we set it at 45 and for any reason whatsoever, the developer came forward with 46, it would have to go all the way back and the zoning agreement would have to be amended. So it's basically just a leeway. It's not actually, we're not necessarily saying by capping it at 50 that we would actually support a 50-foot building, because it would still have to go through plan approval, but all it does is gives a little bit of leeway. But if you set it at 45, that's fine. That basically just
I understand
doesn't
that
leave-
point,
yeah,
and I hope we can make it a 45, so that if it gets approved. But again, I'm not gonna be here forever. But you guys won't be around here forever. Someone might just say, well, it's 50, and they don't have that knowledge. So sometimes you look at precedent and models. Like
Yeah.
okay, that's fine. The issue, back to parking, I didn't see anywhere in here, for loading. Where's the loading gonna happen? Loading, they can't load out front on Corden, and then they're gonna change something on us. They're loading off Niagara or loading off.
They're loading for the commercial uses.
Yeah,
I don't believe they're required to have a loading zone specifically, so it'd be from the rear lane. I'll have a look at the site plan specifically. Yeah, so I mean, likely they would be, to some extent, it's up to the architect and the future occupant in terms of how they're going to facilitate loading, whether they do it from the underground spot or right off of the rear lane. There's nothing shown, they're not required to have that space. But I mean, it would be critical for the business to operate that they have a space to do that, and they do have underground space available, and a drive aisle.
here, I'll have to develop that when you come back up. The other one is, so back to the parking, it is pretty congested there, I got that. In your calculations where the 5 stalls not available and alternatives, blah, blah, blah. So right now, we're looking at a shortage of, I think you said 4?
That's right. If the conditions and the position of the administration are all taken into account, we would call that 4 stalls short.
And that doesn't take into account the bike stuff. We used to give credit to the bikes.
We will use additional bike parking to support a parking variance.
Right.
But
Okay.
yeah, that's the 4 stalls are not being offset by the, there's no number that you're seeing in front of you that says based on this amount of parking, they actually require less stalls or anything like that.
Okay, so the 4. And visitor parking, is that part of that parking ratio?
It is, I believe it's, I've just been looking through it. I'm having a hard time getting the number up. I think it's 2 stalls is what their visitor ratio is.
Yeah.
If you can give me just a few more minutes, I'll be able to actually have that number for you.
Maybe we'll just take a small health break right now while the administration is set up. Okay, 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Okay, we're back, and I think the public administration has an answer for Councilor Local.
Yes, thanks for your patience there. It's 4 visitor stalls is what
4,
they're.
okay,
Yeah.
that's good. Okie dokie. All right. Okay, I'm good. That's all the questions I have for the administration.
So
I'm ready to make a motion.
We actually have, the applicant can return to speak in rebuttal, but no comments may be
I
made, but.
apologize.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just have more points of clarification, given the the residents' comments. The entire project has been explicitly framed within the directions and objectives of our Winnipeg 2045 and complete communities as applied by the City of Winnipeg Planning, Property and Development Department. When reviewing infill and densification proposals within mature neighborhoods and major corridors, these policy documents guide the evolution of establishing these projects towards, transit supportive, context sensitive forms of development. The proposed development has been completely and comprehensively shaped and aligned with the citywide objectives. And I think that's something we all need to talk more about with all our residents and communities towards 2045. That's just more of a comment. One concern I have is there is a petition that is against the project, but unfortunately it's a bit misleading. It's using a 5-story commercial building as a picture exemplifying our project, which has nothing to do with our project. It's a 5-story commercial building that towers over houses, which is very misleading in the petition. And unfortunately, I'm not sure how to address that, but it's something I believe people against are being thrown something that's not consistent with our perspective that we've provided and offered to any individual that came to our or open house, or if communicated by email. I've shared with them the entire palette of documents that have been shared in this council room today. So I'm not sure why they're using a misleading document like that. So I'd like it to be removed from the record if possible, or reintroduced with the proper documentation.
Chair, this is veering off,
Okay, sure enough.
right?
Yeah, if you could just stay on.
None of
Thank
us
you.
has control over.
Yeah, no problem.
It was presented, so it's rare, but
It's very spoken and was
Yeah.
presented, but.
Yes, fair enough. I think the discussion of 4 stories is sometimes also a difficult one to assess. As we know, the building has a portion that's 3 stories and a portion that's 4 stories. And we're technically very compliant with 45 feet. Like I said, the only thing that would stick above the roof is a little mechanical piece of equipment or the elevator shaft. And the zoning agreement addresses that. So in moving towards a 45-foot cap, we wouldn't have a problem with that. The other thing is the demand. The demand is very high for multifamily in River Heights. I have 4 children that, obviously were able to make ends meet and buy a home in River Heights, but they would have loved to just lived in River Heights in a rental unit versus renting a home. A lot of people in the community that are aging that would like to stay in the community don't have that opportunity. Atelier was just finished in Tuxedo, has a waiting list of 250 people. The demand is there. I think we need to address more housing in River Heights and more multifamily, which is consistent with 2045. Living in place, I think, is what the term is used in our neighborhoods today. Loading, to address the loading, we have a loading spot off the back lane for CRU 1. And we also have another one that's accessed from Niagara. But in the event of this OTL that we have in place, we wouldn't need both. We would only have the one for deliveries. I think outside of any other questions that you may have, I don't have any other. I would like to just comment, all our setbacks have been considered to a significant degree by the use of sidewalks, building massing setbacks, landscaping setbacks, landscaping intensification using bushes, shrubs, trees. And so there's a very nice interface between the public sidewalks and our building, encouraging resident interaction with it. The patio has been shown extensively to give opportunity for seating for the restaurant, and it also can be a spot where people just hang out, which happens in River Heights everywhere. 7-Eleven kids hang out. Patio will become that. So it'll be a neat place for congregation. It's not a public space, but it certainly isn't stopping anybody from sitting there. So I think, we need to look at these projects in an interrelationship with our urban environment. no different than those 5 additional parking stalls. We will be approaching both our neighbor to the east and the new neighbor to the north of us. Their stalls are empty during the night. Perfect spots for guests and patrons of our bakery to come in the evenings and can park. So there's many ways to interrelate use and interaction with the built environment and get real efficiency towards parking, which I think we all are concerned as neighbors. I live 4 houses from this development. I appreciate River Heights, but living in River Heights also has inconveniences if you want to live in an urban environment.
I want to thank you, and because I do have new people here for the first time, I want to thank you for actually putting on an open house for some people to know that not all developers do that. And you were able to make some changes and address some of the concerns that some of the neighbors have, and that all stemmed from that. So I want to thank you for doing that, because not all developers do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Rowlands.
I'll take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Oracle. Okay.
Okay, I'll give my recommendation at the end. So I'm going to be adding some amendments to this one as well. The report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
In favor?
The receipt, okay, sorry, and the receipt of public representations be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
The recommendation of Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and forwarded to the Standing Policy Committee on Property Development with the following amendments. Following amendments are the height is capped at 45 feet. Number 2, the loading area is off Niagara only. We just heard from the developer, that was fine. Whatever is in the commercial is shut down at 10 p.m.
So limit the hours.
Limit the hours at 10 p.m.
Starting from what time?
I guess it'd be 8 to 10.
Yeah, can I ask one
Yeah.
clarification on that? Understanding that it's a bakery, I think the bakeries often start to fire up the ovens quite early. And so
Guests, it's just guests coming in, I think is the question. Yeah,
yes,
patrons.
so this,
Right.
we could, so there's 2 ways to structure this condition. We could just say that the business hours are between these, or we could say that no business shall be open to the public between these
Sure.
hours, and that way they could still.
The bakery has to be a little, that's fine. So the latter be fine. Thank you. Because there's still a couple of questions about the fence height in the back, there's a couple of questions about ensuring that the proponent who's going to be utilizing the area is there. Also the other amendment is up on the 3rd story where the stairwell is. I'm not sure what you call that piece. The developer said we get rid of that. So it has a little more setback further. Not sure what that was called.
Truncate stair.
That top part,
Right.
remove that.
That could probably just be dealt with at the plan approval stage.
Sure. Okay, and then I said committee, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this development is large. I don't want to dispute that at all. The conversations I've had with residents, some of them being quite harsh, I gotta say. I really advise anybody who makes some of those comments about intent and of the councillors. We do have an ethics commissioner. They all, by all means, they can go there. But this was all done up and up. So it's no favoritism from a friend or who has never really met the gentleman, but that's beside the point. But by all means, those concerns should be leveled to the ethics commissioner, not to the actual area councillor. Because this was a hard decision, because I do understand the feedback. One of the areas reasons why, we talked about the privacy seemed to be a real big one on this one. I understand that. However, they have the right to do a C1 property and an R and just even a single family property at 4 stories. They're going to have the same problems. Maybe a few less windows, maybe not. But again, none of those windows may actually be dealing with the fact of the mitigations that the developer put in place. So, and furthermore, if this development doesn't go in, some development's going to go in, and I'd be concerned that it'd be wouldn't it be as, how do I say, developer doing things like a public hearing? Developers generally don't do public hearings and they don't really want to know what the residents have to say. Or therefore, not even further, they don't actually amend the original plan based upon that. So I'm also worried if I start shutting things down because I'd rather just be 39 only, but in future, a future developer would not be willing to participate in this process as this one has. So I do want to thank them for that because it's really important. The one thing the developer has tried to show, and where I think the difference where we're talking about policy statement stuff is he showed actually a building I had a fight with years and years ago on Harrow, which kind of settled down. But again, these are besides 3-story buildings. So the impact of the growth, the height, but again, that's since our bylaws changed now, that whole argument's over. But again, some of these areas where it's sensitive to the context of the area, which is always been fighting for. I knew Central and Grant Park, those areas, Central Rights and Grant Park, where they're primarily all bungalows. It's going to be difficult. And like I say, I super dread the fact that when that 4-story fourplex goes in the middle block of some street with bungalows all around it. That's why, again, I voted against the Housing Accelerator Fund. The idea of the commercial, I think it will be well used. Again, if it's appropriate commercial, that's why I'll have to come back to community committee. The trees, they've got a lot of trees in here. That's my little, I'll show you a picture later on. The committee members will be hugging a tree in Costa Rica. But they do a beautiful, they did add that. It does liven up the street. People have said, well, we don't need this. Well, that actually is factually wrong. This is on a major corridor, transit corridor. It has a bike parking. And I hear quite a bit about people who want to live in place. They don't want to move out of the River Heights area, but they have to because they can't afford to buy another home. And the prices vary. So the last one I heard, and I can't really speak to it. I know the assessor has. I've heard both these comments about my property values go down. And I've also heard people say my property values goes up because now I can sell it not as a single family home. I can sell it as a 4-story RMF or even a commercial. So again, I understand the concerns about property value, but that's pretty well outside our wheelhouse here. So I think with the amendments that we propose today, the further amendments with the developer is done. They've tried their best. I know people aren't going to be too happy, especially on Queenston, and I respect that. But I have to make a decision, and I have to man up to it. So I am doing that. I think this is the best we can get with this proposal, and it is needed in the River Heights area. That's it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion's carried.
Please note that the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representations are permitted on the subdivision and rezoning. All persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council.
All right, down to the variance. Report of Winnipeg of public service be taken as read.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
Receipt of public rotation be concluded.
All in favor? Carried.
According to subsection 2473, Sigway Charter, variance is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and the applicable secondary plan. I can do does create, doesn't it? Can I? I don't have to be all yes, right?
For to move forward.
Yeah.
You can do
Yeah. So I believe that I think it does create a substantial adverse effect on the use, safety, convenience of adjoining property and adjacent area, including areas separated from a property by a street or a waterway. That one I can concur with. C is a minimum modification of the zoning bylaw, relieves interest effect of the zoning bylaw on the property, and D is compatible with the area in which the property is situated. Supporting reasons same as before.
Right. All in favor?
I don't believe that it creates a substantial adverse effect, but I'll just note that and we can move on.
You can beat me on that one.
Yeah.
You want to go with her?
Yeah, like I concur with Councilor Lewis, so
We can just put it on the record. I don't think.
Yeah.
We don't have
It's too
to.
complicated, so.
It's still substantively, we'll move forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 that the public hearings with respect to the application be concluded.
We did have the amendments.
Oh, as amended. What? That's right.
Yes.
The amendment in condition number 2 with the car share vehicles. So we'll delete the 2 car share vehicles and 2 dedicated parking stalls and replace with 1 car share vehicle and 1 dedicated parking stall.
Administrations,
Yes.
yes. So
And the five offsite is in there already?
Yes.
Great.
Moved as amendment, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
Madam Chair.
With the
Oh,
public
yeah.
hearing with respect.
Will this be concluded?
Okay, all in favor? Motion's carried.
Please note that the committee's decision with respect to this application may be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order, which will be mailed to all persons registered.
Move to adjourn?
Yeah, motion to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.